We're back.
Hi, pink people.
What up?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome back to the Color Pink podcast. Bro, there have been so many moments today where like my brain just isn't translating to my mouth. Like, I don't know what it is.
She's been slurring her words.
Bro, it's actually been like that for weeks.
I know. I've been listening to it.
Yeah, like I don't know what's going on.
So have they. No, I'm kidding. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Well, I'm Sydney the slurrer.
Aw, I'm Hallie.
And welcome back to the Color Pink podcast. So this is a series all about subjective living. Last season, episode 2, The Temptation of Being Average, we introduced this idea of subjective living, which I'm gonna default to Hallie to explain.
Turn over to me. This is my job at this point.
It is. There we go.
Subjective living. Take a seat. So last season we got into this idea of objective living versus subjective living. Objective living, the main idea there is that there is an objective told to us and sold to us, an objective best way to do a ton of the things that we do, think, want, right? Connect with these people, you should dress this way, blah, blah, blah. And some of those are obvious, but there's a lot of objective bests that are being sold to us that are not obvious, but are still extremely effective and detrimental when we buy into them, which we kind of naturally do.
Yeah.
Until we raise the issue, gain an awareness around it, and recognize the effect that it's had on us. This series was born out of the desire to gain those different awarenesses in different areas, basically cross over from objective living in these areas of life to subjective living. We've been doing the work individually and together to cross that line in as many categories of life as we can. And the other side is lovely.
Yeah.
So we wanted to design a whole series about it.
Yeah. This series is essentially the bridge to Terabithia.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, and today we are talking about productivity.
Yes.
Ew, exactly ew. But I will say, not so ew towards the end of the episode. I think we've cultivated a beautiful perspective on it.
Yes.
That's informed by us.
True.
For us. FUBU, you know?
Exactly.
Or no, boo-foo.
No, for you, by us. FIBU.
So one thing I want to point out before really diving into productivity, there's something dangerous about living your life objectively defined. But I think specifically with this topic, this is one that directly hurts you, but benefits an entire system, an entire society, an entire culture. This in particular, there's a lot more data to prove this than maybe some of our other topics, you know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to kick it off with the definition of productivity. Because this is gross. Ew. So if you Google productivity, Wikipedia defines it, which I know that's not a really good source, but like I thought this was probably the most relevant to how we define productivity or how we relate to productivity. And
it's telling.
Exactly.
Just reading it here, it's telling.
Yeah. So according to Wikipedia, productivity is defined as the efficiency of production of goods or services expressed by some measure. So it can be measured by outputs and inputs over a period of time. That sounds a lot like a business to me.
Coming from a supply chain girly, that's a business.
No, but seriously, like that's a business.
Yeah.
Procedure, process, metric. It's morphed into something that's become a personal value or like a character trait. Like it's not just business, it's how are you productive, Hallie? How are you productive, Sydney? We've almost kind of begun running ourselves like a business according to what's productive. Something that you said, because we had recorded this previously, is that productivity is now a requirement of us being awake and alive that day.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, I actually saw something yesterday that took the words out of my mouth. I've been talking about this for years, but honestly, a lot of people have, so this is nothing crazy. But it was basically saying that a lot of y'all wear your burnout as a badge of honor.
Oh my God.
But the thing is, like, we know that, right?
Yeah, we do.
But we never talk about it using alliteration. And that's why it got me. I was like, damn, there's all, like, you just sold that idea better than I ever have.
Yeah.
So shout out whoever wrote it that way.
Yeah.
You're good with words. But yeah, interestingly enough, you were just saying, how are you productive, Sydney? How are you productive, Hallie? Yes, the world is asking those questions of us, but it's even worse, even deeper, because we're asking those questions of ourselves.
Yep.
Right? And it's not just the two of us.
No.
It's a lot of us. Even on weekends, for example, days designated to rest. We don't really have days designated to rest.
No.
We really don't have time periods designated to rest, nor do we know how to rest. And I'm jumping the gun. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I don't want to make such a bold claim, but I would venture to say the large majority of us feel this way until we've rewired it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I woke up today. I need to be productive. It is like a literal requirement. It's like today I will breathe and I will do something in the spirit of productivity.
Yeah. Yeah. There have been so many days where I've logged off from work, like in a shame spiral, because I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get this done. Oh my God, I didn't get this done. Am I a valuable worker? Am I a valuable person? Like you just go down the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. You really just fucking go down the rabbit hole.
And forget work. There's been times where we are off work because we have a new job starting in 2 weeks and have free time, and we can still manage a shame spiral of, like equal gravity.
Yeah.
On a day when we actually have no one we have to do things for. We can always manage to find ourselves in a productivity related shame spiral, even on days and chapters of our lives dedicated to rest.
It's super sad. Where do you think the pressure to be productive originates from?
Motherfucking Henry Ford. No, I'm just kidding.
Mic drop.
But actually...
No, yeah, actually, yes.
No, but actually, and this weekend we went to a thrift store.
We walked in, the first thing we saw, I swear to God.
Big, huge Henry Ford bust.
Yeah.
Right there staring at people as they walk in. And it's saying like the man, the myth, the machine, the company on the plaque. And I'm like, oh dear God, how ironic would it be if we just got a little table, put him right here. But where do I think it came from?
Yeah.
So I had lived in Colombia for a while. I'll never forget this. I'm sitting there and I have such I have this ingrained US perspective on life, right? And I'll never forget, I'd been there probably 4 or 5 months already. It comes the day of my final exam in one of my classes at the university. Mm-hmm. And I was exhausted. I slept through my alarms. I missed my ride to school, and I'm panicking because you can't just miss your final in the United States. You can't just do that shit. You know what I mean?
You can't.
So I'm like panicking, flagging down the city bus, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get to school. I get to school. I'm like literally running to my class. I get there. Class is almost over. They're sitting around eating cake. Chill as all fuck.
I was like, oh, hey, Holly.
And I like say to my professor, like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. She's like, don't worry about it. Cógela suave. That's what she said, which is like, take it easy, right? Like, take it easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is definitely a conditioning thing, because in her perception, I could gauge your knowledge of this language an hour ago or an hour from now. Who gives a fuck? And I'm like, wow, what a fucking concept. That was a moment that smacked me in the face that like other people get by just fine.
Yeah.
Without this pressure.
Yeah.
They have communities that are just fine. They have businesses that are just fine. They have culture and entertainment and exports that are just fine. And I'm like, y'all are all okay. Well, it's wild.
Let's think about Europe. Like, people in Europe, first of all, they work like 6 hours a day, like 4 days a week.
Yeah, with naps and
they take
cookie breaks.
Right. They take like 2 hour breaks. They're like, yeah, go home, take a nap, eat some food, come back. And when they do come back, it's like for like 2 hours. And it's just like, they're doing just fine. They are doing just fine. And so it's definitely directly challenged this idea that like we need to be productive in America. Like, it's just so annoying. Like, we are just fucking worker bees. Like, even in Europe, there are certain countries, they take like an entire month off.
And I think this starts so young, because I have like vivid memories of being in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and like finishing my independent assignment. And as soon as you turn it in, you're given something else to do. Well, you ran out of stuff to do, smack the erasers together. Yeah. You have to keep moving. You have to keep doing something, you know?
Well, I told you this. My dad used to make me take like classes during the summer.
About bats.
Like the most fucking ridiculous shit.
College courses about bats.
No, literally. I took a class at RISD, the most prestigious art school in the country, on bats. Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't make sense to me. So I read this book called Lynchpin by Seth Godin, and it is permanently on loan to someone who I will never talk to again.
Ooh, I don't even know who that is.
Episode 7.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah. And it's basically a book about how you can find what your linchpin is, find what makes you indispensable in a company, in your environment, whatever. And A large part of the book is really kind of dissecting why it's hard for us to be valuable in companies. It really kind of boils down to Henry Ford. But when we think about what his greatest contribution was, it wasn't the fact that he manufactured cars and he introduced and invented a car. His greatest contribution is the introduction of the assembly line. A little bit of a history lesson. We had the Industrial Revolution, which just kind of brought like factories and mass production into America, but like everyone was doing say if we were manufacturing nutcrackers, because I see one in a box right there.
By the way, I learned in the last few months that nutcrackers crack nuts. I had no idea.
Yeah, she didn't know that.
Nope. And I'm not dumb.
Have you tried to crack a nut with one yet? You should probably do that.
I'll do it on camera.
Okay, so say for example, we're trying to make a nutcracker. Hallie would make a nutcracker. I would make a nutcracker. We would individually make a nutcracker. With the assembly line, it was like, okay, there would be 6 people all performing one step to assemble a nutcracker. So like one person would put it together. The other person would put like the sweater on, or like you basically took these complex tasks and you boiled them down to their most simple steps. So now instead of one individual being able to make the entire thing and being skilled in making that thing, they could only do one step, and therefore you strip their value as a worker from them. That's how productivity really came into play. It was like, okay, like, well, you're holding up the line here. You can only paint 4 nutcrackers in an hour. Well, Brenda over here is doing 14 nutcrackers in an hour. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. It infiltrated the entire structure of American society. Literally, like, we're in school 6-7 hours a day. So it mentally prepares, it conditions us from when we're 5 years old to know we have to work. This is what we're supposed to do with our day. We're supposed to work. Like standardized testing, everything being the same. Like you squash creativity, ideation, all of these things for the sake of creating a worker when they graduate school, which is wild.
And this is why Henry Ford is right on the top of our shit list.
No, literally. Something that you had mentioned in the last iteration of this episode, and you said this brilliantly, is that with the assembly line, you stripped value away from the individuals and you made them rely on groups and systems in a disempowering way. You know, it's like they're only focusing on one step. You increase their reliance on the corporation.
The key word is disempowering, right? And this is the same with every objective living thing. It sells you promises on the front end, right?
Yeah.
You'll always have a job. You'll be really good at something that'll always be in need. But then there's this really dangerous inverse where like, well, what about when the economy evolves?
Yeah.
Someone disrupts this industry and no one needs someone who knows how to put 6 paint buttons on a nut. What is that called? I almost said a nunchuck, a nutcracker.
I'm dead.
Right? And then it's like, well, I'm shit out of luck.
Yeah.
I don't have other skills. There's really great marketing around a system like this. You know what I mean? Because it has a lot of us convinced for years and years and years and years and years that this is the objective best, not just for you, but for all of us. This is how we get the most done. This is how we produce the most. This is how you have the most things to have. It's shitty.
God bless America. What can I say?
Not that.
With this idea of productivity, over time, we've become less and less specialized. Like we're really just taught how to do things the way that our employers want us to do. We're becoming more and more focused on outputs. So we shifted away from recognizing value within ourselves for ourselves to what are my outputs? What am I producing? What am I contributing? You know?
Yep.
Over time, it's persisted that people who are valued are people who are productive. What are they contributing to the company? What are their outputs? Whatever. And it's like, it's sad because it's trickled down to the most intimate parts of our life. It's not just like work anymore. It's like we're conditioned to think like this and bring it home and figure out, well, how can I be productive in this? How can I be productive in that? And it's wild.
Yes.
It's wild.
Yes.
I did want to pass this off to you because
pass it to me.
This idea of productivity has morphed into what we now know as hustle culture. Yeah. And
I'm a recovering
so I'm
hustle addict.
I'm gonna let you talk.
As you know, I'm in recovery.
Yeah.
Productivity, it is scary the hold it has on us, and it is scary how invisible it is, but how everywhere it is. My experience, and also the themes that I've gathered just from being friends with people and talking to them about their lives and having coworkers and talking to them about their lives, is that, you know, our loss, like we're all lost.
Yeah.
To some degree, to a large degree, pretty much, and don't know how to sit with that, right? We all struggle in many ways to connect with a true, authentic sense of purpose, belonging, identity, and things that we have real conviction in. You know, we might look like we do, we might act like we do, but having like real conviction that makes us sleep easy on those things. You know what I mean? Productivity, or the people who are driving, you know, the productivity float in the parade, are like, are like, see the opportunity to be like, you know what might address that sense of lostness? You know what might address that inability to figure out your purpose or your identity or where you belong? Productivity. We get the idea that I have holes in my being, and productivity can fill them. To me, the way that I understand this analogy is like, sure, productivity is like wet cement that you can fill the hole, but it will never dry.
Yeah.
So now what happens is I'm heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm carrying a bunch of shit around that is not natural to me, that doesn't belong to me. And it takes extreme effort and like exertion to scrape all that shit out. But honestly, a lot of people don't get there. A lot of people just walk through life heavy. We are mostly all operating under the belief that the heavier I am, the more cement that I can hold.
Yeah.
The fuller I am, the more complete I am, and cannot figure out why it feels so heavy. Yeah. Right. And then we don't think to blame the system. We think to blame ourselves, and it shame spirals ensue. Right. Yeah. And I know so many people, myself included, who my life is chaos. I feel so bad. So I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be super productive, and that's going to fix everything. So many of us on so many occasions feel productivity, I'll just lift some more cement and fill it in this hole, and we're gonna be good. And it's like the math,
it's not math and babes.
Yeah No matter how much subjective living you're doing, there's more to be done, right? So there are always holes. There are holes in me, there are holes in you, right? Well, I'll let you decide that.
There are.
Okay. But I just want to give an example of like when I used productivity to fill a hole and I felt the very tangible heaviness of it. So there was a time that I moved from Miami back to Boston. I hadn't started working at Starbucks yet. I just didn't have much structure to my life. And so naturally, like a bunch of holes popped up, right? And I'm like, I need purpose. I need belonging. I need all of those things. And so I took on this idea for a project that I had that is still very much a soft spot for me. And I have not transparently healed all the shame around this at all. I started this project called Chubby Girl Chat, enlisted a bunch of people to get in on it, and we would have these conversations like on video chat as a group, and they were really, really powerful. But it was a much bigger lift than I had the capacity to support. What I needed actually was rest and connection. Mm-hmm. But I leaned into productivity instead. Yeah. And the lift of that project, though it would have been impactful and powerful, it represented heaviness to me. Yeah. It represented something I don't have the capacity to do. And it literally sat in me and on me like cement. And I felt so heavy. And I had to enlist a friend, Gary. Shout out Gary.
Shout out Gary. We love Gary.
I had to enlist a friend to literally like get in there and be like, you need to pull that cement out. And this is what it looks like to do that. Yeah. You need to return to lightness. You know what I mean? But it took me months to be willing to scoop that cement out because I was so entrenched in, but productivity serves me. Yeah. It serves me. It gives me purpose. It gives me, you know what I mean? It gives my life meaning, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I had it wrong.
Yeah. I think productivity is it's sold to us. Yeah. And it's a shortcut to what we think is belonging and all these other things. But I think there's so many other things that you could substitute in place of productivity that do a lot more for your soul. Yeah. But we'll get
actually get you there.
Yeah. 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 We'll definitely get to that. As I mentioned before, just going to reiterate, capitalism and companies have pushed productivity so far into us via subliminal messaging, conditioning, schools, jobs, all these different areas that we interact with constantly, that it's leaked into our personal lives. And the messaging behind that's super sneaky.
It's incredibly sneaky.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the fact that, for example, I'm a full-ass adult who's been in therapy, who's read books about whatever, who has a client who teaches feminine energy, who this, that, I had all the ways possible to know that productivity wasn't the answer to that problem that I was having.
Yeah.
It is so hard to figure that out.
Well, yeah, because like that's what we're taught. Like we're taught like
it's so deep.
Yeah. It's tough. So like what are some of the ways you think that, or like what is some of the messaging that we received regarding productivity throughout our lives?
You're as worthy as you are productive. If
Boom.
you want to increase your worth, increase your output.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Productivity shapes this belief that we're only worthy when we're productive. And that's super damaging.
Yeah.
Super damaging.
Because, well, for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But think about it. Like, worthiness should be, yes, it's a thing that'll fluctuate in life. It's a thing that we, based on everything around us in life, we have to fight for on occasion or often. You know what I mean? Keeping a sense of worthiness intact. But those fluctuations should probably be more like smoother, wider. Like the amount of time you spend in a certain trajectory should be wider. But if your
not like a fucking stock
worthiness, okay, thank you. If your worthiness is tied to your output, and on Monday you did great, and on Tuesday you did bad, your worthiness is up, down, up, down, up, down. No, that is a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah.
And now imagine you're already down and you fill yourself with cement. It's like, bro,
you're not getting
this
back
fucking
up.
sucks.
You're not getting
and you're
back
wondering
up.
why you're laying on the ground. That's why.
Right.
But then we wonder why it is so hard to maintain relationships. We're all fucking tired.
Yeah.
We are all running on E. We all have very low capacity. And there is no messaging around, rest and connection, healing within community might clear out some of that cement, blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, there's none of that. We lean further into the problem as the problem gets worse.
Because we're told the problem is the solution.
Exactly.
It's really a fucking cycle.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the cycle is keeping us as workers so that America keeps thriving and capitalism keeps thriving.
My feelings are hurt.
Sorry.
You didn't do it.
I know. Henry Ford did it. But like,
should we rename our podcast?
Fuck Henry Ford.
The anti-Henry podcast?
Right. This idea that we're only worthy when we're being productive causes us to work on vacation, causes us not being able to rest mindfully, not being able to be present when we're resting. We feel guilty taking breaks. We feel guilty resting. And like, personally for me, even when I am resting, I feel that I need to show I'm doing something with my rest that will relate back to productivity. Like, I need to be reading. Like, it's a Saturday. I need to finish a book that will bring me to the fifth dimension, and I can use that higher consciousness to solve problems and logistics worldwide. Like, that's what I'm thinking about, bro.
Yeah.
Overall, productivity makes us hustle for our worth, our belonging, our connection, like all of it. Like, it is told that it is the life source for us as individuals.
On that note, I've obviously had very different experiences working somewhere like a retail chain like Starbucks and then working at a corporate company. But one thing, and it's funny because they wouldn't call themselves corporate, but comparatively I would. But one thing that's consistent is that you have to speak at length, great length, for the rest you want to take.
Yeah.
Because the company is set up in a way where we can't really afford people to rest or take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Because then our collective output suffers. And it's really interesting and disheartening and terrible to experience and to watch people specifically at Starbucks shame spiral and have these absolute crises about wanting to take a day off because their brother's in the hospital, wanting to take a day off because they're in the hospital. The rest and the breaks and things that we should be able to take, people feel so bad about them because the system is not set up to support that. But we are encouraged to make it our problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
My team right now is really exhausted. We've been working crazy. And one thing that I suggested was that everyone put a happy hour on the calendar each week, which is like an hour for themselves during work time where you do whatever you want that is not work. And I was the one monitoring, did people put a happy hour on the calendar?
Yeah.
And people put their hour after work hours. And I'm like, guys,
no.
And I'm like, I know that is a productivity related thing.
Yeah.
I have to be here. I have to be productive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are so many meetings you can miss.
That's wild.
Put it during the fucking day.
Something you said is that productivity bullies us.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. There's a lot of concepts or constructs that bully the fuck out of us.
Yeah.
And productivity is one of them.
It really, really bullies us.
And kind of like we said in the last episode with career, the concept of career bullies us too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, we are told careers, you're a good pal. Productivity is your sweet old friend. No, it's your fucking bully.
No,
and when you
it's
think
the
about it that
spawn
way,
of
it's the
Henry
spawn
Ford.
of Henry Ford. If Henry Ford and William Slater had a child, I'm like, are my Rhode Island taxes going to get rejected because I just said that? Are they hearing me? It's interesting how things can change when you start looking at productivity as someone that bullies you.
Yeah.
Well, a thing that bullies you,
Yeah.
a concept that bullies you.
That's wild.
That's my bully.
So, Miss Hallie, how did we make the pivot to a subjectively defined version of productivity?
On accident, for starters.
Yeah.
For me, it was an accident at first. Now it's intentional. It was emotional indicators, actually.
Ooh.
And like the constant presence of negative emotional indicators that are like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm heavy, this sucks, I'm bored, all the bad things. And then this like sudden influx of, wow, this is fun and exciting and I'm connected and I'm feeling intuitive and I'm blah, 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 right? So I had this friend in Miami. His name is Joey, which Hey Joey, which is the name of like every person I know. There's so many significant Joes or Joeys in my life. Also insignificant ones.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. This friend of mine, Joey, and I, we met when it's funny, we are both like slightly outrageous creative people. Other people perceive us as like these very interesting creative people, and we met each other and thought that I thought he was like a boring fuck and he thought I was a boring fuck. But what's funny is we were both in corporate jobs.
Ooh.
And it just killed our spirits, the essence of who we are. So we met each other in these situations where we were like, what the fuck? But we did connect on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then however many months later, he saw something I posted and was like, wait a second.
Are you cool?
Are you cool? And I was like, are you? And we're both like, there's no way. It's a fluke, but maybe we should get coffee, right?
Yeah.
So we go to Starbucks, actually, which is funny. Yeah, we meet up and we're like, oh shit, we're both cool. I had no idea.
What
Yeah,
are the
me
odds?
neither. We were just able to make a safe space for us to be creative without the pressures of things like productivity. And we
Yeah.
didn't know that's what we were doing,
Yeah.
but we were doing it on accident based on what felt good. We had these ideas that we wanted to execute on. We were setting schedules, banging things out, and in essence being productive without the goal of being productive, because we were motivated and led by like our process and our ideas, and everything was led by intuition, connection, possibilities, like all these things that were energizing for us. It was in that chapter of my life that I recognized that there are multiple pathways to productivity. A lot of them feel like shit, and at least one of them feels great.
Yeah.
And that got me curious about that.
Yeah.
So that was one big thing for me. And then the other thing, I've probably talked about this before, but I had...
No, you didn't.
Oh, I didn't?
Yeah, no, you didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like so glad you're smiling right now. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about. When I came back to Boston and started working at Starbucks, something I always knew is that I didn't have any patience when it came to creativity. I wanted to like have an idea and make it happen extremely fast. I just didn't have any of what I called like creative endurance, you know? And so I had this idea when I was working at Starbucks that I wanted to build a sustainable Starbucks Christmas cottage. That's what I called it. And I wanted to collect a bunch of recycle ready materials that were like stained or used or dropped on the floor or whatever, ready to. So I did. I collected a shit ton of stuff, and I spent probably 25 to 30 hours over the course of December, every single night, all day, every weekend, building this absolutely ridiculous, like inventive Starbucks sustainable Christmas cottage out of these wild materials. And it was, first of all, beautiful.
Yeah.
So rewarding. That was my very first creative endurance project, which is a thing that I use now. Like, I challenge myself to creative endurance projects. I always felt, and this is a productivity thing, you have to be willing to do what it takes, even if it takes blood, sweat, and tears. My creative endurance projects are an update to that. So I want to be willing to do what it takes, even if it takes grace, breaks, and editing my end goal.
Yeah.
That blew my fucking mind.
Amazing.
And I have been so much more productive in life.
By removing the goal of productivity.
By removing the goal of productivity, letting different things lead my path.
Yeah.
And swapping out blood, sweat, and tears for grace, breaks, and the willingness to edit my end goal.
Yeah.
Based on intuition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And emotional indicators.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, dude. I always panicked about having no discipline and not getting things done and not executing anything, never seeing results. I just could never get there. And it was like the biggest thing that I shame spiraled about in life. And now I'm like, I just accidentally unlocked productivity by decentering productivity. What the fuck?
Absolutely wild.
No, it's wild. I still sometimes like
Henry
I'll be like
Ford
doing
is
my
turning over in his grave.
And, no, seriously, sometimes hi Henry.
Hey.
No, like sometimes I'm like literally in the mirror like doing my skincare at night and I just start chuckling. So I'm like, that shit is crazy.
Isn't it like, it's so beautiful. Like, we're both Aquarius moons, okay? We got some spunky placements in our chart. For us, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to speak for me, but I know that these are themes in your life. I was told so much, this is the way that things have to be done. You have to do it like this, blah, blah, blah. This is the way things work. When you find evidence that directly, like, contrasts against what you were told, it's so satisfying. It's like a big fuck you from you, and the universe is backing you up, being like, yeah, fuck you, buddy.
That's exactly what
like it feels so good.
Yeah, it feels so good. And it's not even like, wow, I feel like I've been, well, I do feel like I've been fucked over by the system, you know what I mean? But it's not even like that's the focus.
Yeah,
the focus is not on how I've been disempowered. The focus, once you crack that, is like, holy shit,
yeah,
I feel so empowered.
Yeah,
I didn't know I had this option. I didn't know I had options, period.
Yeah. It's like a whole new world. A whole new world. A dazzling place I've never been. Oh, I don't know what no, I don't know what the verb is. Wonderful examples of how you made the pivot from productivity in a objective living light to productivity in a subjective living light. For me, I feel like a lot of it was through my trauma. Like the main one just being like graduating college, like that was like major culture shock for me. Like I feel like you could have like dropped me off anywhere in the world and like life would not have slapped me as fucking hard as it did graduating school and going to a corporation. Like that's very dramatic and it's probably not true because, you know, that's a first world problem. But like that shit, bro, blew my mind. Very unrelated. But apparently, this is so funny. So the Taliban right now is failing in certain countries where like they've overthrown the government and now instituted their own government because members of the Taliban are having to do office jobs.
Okay.
That's so funny. Like the Taliban will not survive office culture. Like, I don't know where I saw that. I saw that somewhere and I thought that shit was so funny because I'm like, bro, this really fucking speaks to how terrible like productivity office culture, career culture is, like this administrative culture.
Wow.
Terrible.
Office. Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That structure that our whole country runs on can destroy the Taliban.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Not the $2.4 billion trillion whatever that we spend on the military, but capitalism. The structure of capitalism. Isn't that wild?
That's wild.
So yeah, obviously if the Taliban couldn't survive it, I also couldn't survive it. Yeah, like I had to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of digging, because I was just really suffering from low self-esteem. I gave this analogy last episode of like, I felt like I was in the woods and I was thrown a rope and I thought I just need to go to like a different tree and I need to find something. And like, I kept thinking, it's me, something's wrong with me. All of that shit really helped me see there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with the system, right? And so that was definitely something that helped me make the change. Another really big factor that helped me make the change, spirituality, my best friend.
Your bestie.
Besides Hallie.
Oh.
But spirituality, like shadow work, meditating, all these things have really just helped me learn a lot about myself. But I want to talk about one tool specifically, human design. So human design is basically a science almost. I don't like what astrology is basically. And it basically breaks down people into different energy types, different ratios, all these different things based on their birth time and place of birth. And I originally thought that I was a reflector because my parents had my birth time wrong. I went and got a copy of that from my city hall, and I am a projector. So projectors are basically meant to be here as guides for the collective, to bring them into a new reality, to help them see things that aren't working, to basically like just usher in a new way of doing things. And because we're these guides, these leaders, we're meant to rest. And that directly rivaled what I was learning about. You need to be productive. You need to be doing all these projects and all this shit and like blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, like my energy type, I'm not meant to be doing that. Like, I'm really meant to be taking rest so I can recharge, because like, you don't want fucking people leading you if they're burnt out and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, you need to take that time to rest and recharge. And so I've learned that we're productive in different ways. Like for people who, like my mom, oh my God. My mom is like literally the Energizer bunny. Like she is up on her feet like 12 hours a day, just like going, like has so much energy, and I just can't keep up with that. Like I'm like, I don't know like how you do that. Like she'll call me in the middle of the day, like during my lunch, and I'll be lying on my couch and she'll be like, oh, must be nice. And I'm like, listen, I literally need to take a nap. Like I get so sleep deprived. And I've just learned that we have different energy types, and that it's not fair for me to hold myself to standards of productivity when they don't serve me and like literally break my soul.
Yep.
So yeah, another idea that helped me pivot, which came later on, is from my dear Mary Amini. I love Mary. So for the new year going into 2022, I met Mary on Clubhouse, and she hosted a room on Clubhouse for, once again, New Year's Eve 2021 going into 2022, specifically about goal setting. And something that she said, this idea will literally always stick with me, is utilizing joy as a motivating force. So she specifically related it to chakras, which, if you don't know what chakras are, this is a very, 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 very high level like summary of it. Yeah. It's related to Hinduism, related to Indian culture. Highly recommend, if you want to learn more, go to the appropriate teachers about that. But basically with chakras, we have 7 main energy centers in our body, and each one plays a different role, or just a different role in the human experience. And so we have our solar plexus chakra, which is our personal power center. And so it gives us willpower, and that's where we can derive productivity from, right? But in order to get that willpower, in order to get the juice that feeds productivity or outputs, you need to feed it through joy. And so if you're not inputting joy into your life, naturally your outputs are going to suffer. Like, you're not going to be able to achieve certain goals. You're not going to be able to, like, I don't know, like, you're just not going to be able to do the things that you want because you're running low on joy. Like, and it just completely shifted how I view productivity. Like, if I'm consistently hitting blocks when I'm trying to get something done, I'm like, yeah, no, like, let's go for a walk, or like, let's go do something that's going to bring me joy. That's going to help me feel better about myself, so that that energy flows a lot more naturally, you know? Mm-hmm. And so once again, it just gave me a new perspective on productivity, and that productivity doesn't need to be void of joy. Like, if anything, it thrives with joy, and joy makes you more productive. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And it's interesting. You learned that from like a wise elder. I stumbled across it on accident.
Yeah.
But this is what we say when we're talking about emotional indicators. They're just so hard not to believe.
Listen, your intuition will never guide
you wrong. They're so evident. You know what I mean? There's so much evidence and like conviction behind. I don't know. I cannot look away from emotional indicators. You know what I mean? And we've had very different experiences that came to the same point, which is joy. Yeah. I don't know. Joy feeds productivity way better than a focus on productivity feeds productivity.
Yep. Listen to your emotions, folks.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean, that does not mean, oh, every company should get an ice cream truck on Fridays and it's going to fix capitalism. No. It doesn't mean that.
No, it means if you got to leave your job, leave your job. This is almost a topic that you unlearn really well once, and you don't have to keep unlearning to that degree. You know what I mean? Like, you come back and you maintain it, you revisit it, and you make the required adjustments, whatever. But it's not necessarily something that you have to do consistent work around. It's this ongoing process of deprogramming and reprogramming. And this is just for subjective living, period. Never mind productivity.
Yeah. To use the analogy we were using earlier, it's like you clear the cement out.
Yeah.
And then you just go back and dust it.
You might gotta sand it a little bit for the little parts that dried.
Yeah. But minimal work to maintain this understanding compared to the work that it takes to acquire the understanding and really feel that it's true in like your mind, body, spirit, not just your conscious mind of knowing it, you know.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So what values... I was not speaking English when I was writing this question.
That's okay. We know what you mean.
Yeah. What values do you now place above productivity?
All of them. Just kidding.
Right.
But kind of. Well, the big one for both of us is joy.
Yeah.
Another one for me is peace, which is probably for both of us. And then capacity, it's like a word that I use all the time to explain like my thoughts on things, but I definitely value anything that creates capacity in me over productivity, for sure. Hands down. One thing that I have in quotes here, so I guess I said it at one point, I still mean it, so that's cool. When you start prioritizing your values, productivity is a natural outcome. You start to feel alive and want to do something with that aliveness. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I talk a lot about push factors and pull factors, and how pushing yourself towards something or being pushed towards something is a really experience. Yeah. And you actually often like entrench in the opposite of whatever the initial goal was. You like dig your heels in and resist a lot, even if on a subconscious level. So in my life, if I think it's sensible for me to move closer to something, right? Like productivity or whatever, I look for like natural pull factors, things that pull me towards it, or things that make me feel pulled towards it, not things that yank me.
Yeah.
But things that make me feel pulled towards something. What about you? What do you value more than productivity? Other than everything?
Yeah, presence and mindfulness. Like, I feel like there is an unparalleled amount of peace that comes with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a pick peace over shame any day. Also, enjoying the journey. Like, I think from someone who was so focused on productivity and outputs and tying that to a life path or like what my expected journey was meant to be, now I'm just kind of like just enjoying where I am and like allowing myself to see beauty in where I am. Balance and sustainability. Like, I think I was someone who pushed myself so much to be productive, and that's not sustainable. You know what I mean? Like, relating back to willpower, you only have like so much battery, so much you like so far you can go before you need to like recharge. And so now I take stock of like where I am with capacity, and I take stock of my energy levels, and I'm like, you know what, like, not every single week has to be a productive week. Not every single day has to be a productive day. Like, I need a balance of things in order for me to get ahead a little bit further, you know? Yeah. And something that you say a lot is that it's a long life.
It's a long life.
It really is. And it's like, I don't need to push myself to get to a certain place by like, say, like 30, 35, whatever, because what the fuck else is there to do after that time? You know?
Be more productive.
Well, no, think about it. It's like people fucking get retired, and then all of a sudden, or people retire, and then it's like, people are like, oh yeah, you provide absolutely no value to society. Bye. Go on vacation. That's wild.
Yeah. Or I watched this documentary about the rise of senior communities where like they're very particular, like you have to be white, you have to make this much money, like when you retired, blah, blah, blah. And they have like a very like kind of dangerously non-diverse society in these pockets of, guess which state? Florida. But they're getting kind of scary.
That sounds very scary.
They're getting scary.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing I value more than productivity is nourishing my intuition. I think this relates back to emotional indicators, but just listening to myself. Like, I want to listen to myself. I want to honor myself, because I know that's going to be a much better guide than productivity or anything else that's subjectively defined. Another thing, individuality.
Yeah.
I just want to be my own person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live up to the standards of other people anymore. Like, I want to live intuitively up to my own standards. Another thing, creating. But like not in like I don't know, like similar to like what you and Joey were doing, just having fun and creating and allowing that to just be what I'm doing. And if productivity comes from that, it comes from that. But I want to be creating. I don't want to just be producing in this world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, just a real quick side note, I don't want to start shame spirals for people who identify as creators at all.
Oh yeah.
But I just want to say that content creating, whatever, is a place that has still equally been infiltrated by this pressure to be productive.
Yeah.
Just want to say that. I do think there are additional freedoms that are afforded by people who can build a life around this instead of being something like corporate America, but that messaging around productivity like definitely still infiltrates that industry for sure.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's very true. So, what has been the outcome of switching to subjective living X productivity?
Yeah. I'm going to use another Hallie phrase here.
Yeah.
And I love this one. I was so happy to see it there because I haven't said it in a long time, even though I mean it. Crossing the line into subjective living around this topic of productivity for me has boosted the saturation on life.
Yeah.
So you know how like you're editing photos, you boost the saturation. When I have things like this in order, when I have things like forces like the ones we're talking about, the good ones active in my life, it boosts the saturation on everything around me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I completely get that. Like, I think, and we talked about this last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago. I keep using 2 + 2 = 5. That's just because that's a program that I volunteered for. But it's like,
I was gonna say it's corporate jargon, but that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's both. Can't boil the ocean.
Okay.
Shout out Ginge.
Who's never gonna listen to this.
Good.
But I just think there's added benefit to crossing the line into subjective living. It's like, not only are you freeing yourselves from the clasp that is capitalism and productivity, but it's like you're developing more trust with yourself, and you're learning more about yourself, and you're seeing more opportunities in life that, not even like opportunities that you could like take advantage of, but just like you're just seeing different things in life, and it's a beautiful new perspective. It's like, you know how people say take off the rose-colored glasses? I feel like in a way you're putting them on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I think peace has been a big one.
Yeah.
It's just like understanding shit and like not being so rattled all the time. Like that's been like my number one thing. I love that for me.
I love that for you too.
Thank you. I feel like I've gained more space and perspective to understand the reason why my soul came to this planet. Everyone's on this planet for a reason. We all have things that we can do on this planet. We all have special gifts, special talents, things like that. And taking a step back from this idea of productivity has allowed me to really understand, like, okay, like, what am I like meant to be doing here? Like, how am I meant to be having fun here? You know, It's just a lot. It's brought a lot of peace within me in terms of like feeling better.
Yeah.
In this life, you know.
Yeah. On the topic of purpose, real quick, because I know I say that's one of the words that I killed from my vocabulary, but a way to make it so much softer and better is just remove A from in front of it. Like instead of we all have a purpose, we all have purpose.
Yeah.
Because that means it's a wide variety of things that we will do and contribute and opportunities to live purposefully.
I love that. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
I was in a Target when I learned that.
Ooh. Target.
Yeah.
So what are some things that we can give to our listeners as takeaways?
Yes.
Like if they had to put it in a bento box and bring it home.
Cute.
What would it be? Like what would we put in it?
I have two.
Yes.
I am coming at you as like a person who teaches creativity workshops for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are like a little out there. The first one is identify spaces in your life where there are no other stakeholders. What I mean by that is when my friend Joey and I were creating, we were creating for no one else but us. Obviously, there were people, end users, right? Yeah. But we were creating with no one else having expectations of our creations and no pressure to be productive from anyone else. They were areas of our lives that we invented intentionally where there were no other stakeholders, and it eased the pressure of everything. Or, for example, the sustainability, Starbucks, whatever, Christmas cottage. There were no other stakeholders in that. Not one person was trying to invest in that crazy shit. That's what made it possible for me to have so much autonomy there and to test things like whatever it takes, even if it's grace breaks and, you know, the ability to edit my end goal. It was the absence of other stakeholders that made that possible.
Yeah.
So my first suggestion here would be identify areas in your life where there are no other stakeholders. Or if there aren't any, invent a new space. The sustainable cottage was invented. That was a space that I invented. And it didn't have to make sense to anyone. But those are places where you can test out, for example, fueling this with joy or practicing things like grace. Like all these things, you can test out a different path, basically. A different path to productivity or decentering productivity in general, you know? And then the other thing, something that I always advise people to do when they're trying to build creative muscles or maybe other muscles in general is practice on fake problems.
Yeah. That
might not make sense, but there's this YouTube video that I always show people in these workshops, and it's like, it's really funny. You can probably look it up. It's this video of people being like, we're upstairs neighbors, so our job is to figure out how to make noise on the floor to upset the downstairs neighbors. That's like a fake problem. It's not a real thing you need to solve, how to frustrate your downstairs neighbors. Yeah. It being a fake problem with no real stakeholders and no expectations and blah, 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 you can often lean into creativity and intuition so much better and faster, and it'll have better results and it'll make you feel better, right? Because the confines of what does this have to accomplish? Who else cares about this? Blah, blah, blah. They're not constantly affecting your process. So yeah, we're practicing like important skills in really low risk environments. And sometimes you look around your life and there are no low risk environments. You're family is not low risk, your job's not low risk, what your hobbies are not low risk, nothing is, you know. And that's why I say invent the spaces to practice these things, because they may not be there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thanks. What about you?
The only thing that I really have, and this is coming from an INFJ, it's just like embrace the journey that you're on. I think it took a lot of things humbling me to like finally see that like, hey, things not going my way isn't always a bad thing. Like, it allows you to see different opportunities, different perspectives, and through that, different ideas, different, I don't know, just different ways of life come about. And I think that's really beautiful. It's just allowing yourself to stay open to the process and not necessarily having a desired outcome, just maybe a general direction of where you want to go. So yeah, I think a change in perspective when you find yourself in those moments of being like, oh my God, like I always am, like, oh my God, this is not going well, blah, 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 blah. Like, just change your perspective when you can, you know? And I think that does a world of a difference.
Yeah.
And it really helps.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You said something about like not necessarily knowing what the goal is, but just having a general sense of direction.
Yeah.
Another thing is just letting something else lead. Normally productivity leads, just let joy lead. Just let curiosity lead and see where it takes you and not have a sense of direction. You know, either one of those is a great substitute or a great option that gets you different places than productivity would if productivity was leading.
Yeah. Something you say a lot is strong beliefs loosely held.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really great way to practice that. Maybe tailor it a little bit more to like exploring, but like allow yourself to edit your goals like you did with your Starbucks sustainable cottage. But like, yeah, just as you collect new information, new insights about yourself, new insights about what you want to do, allow yourself some grace, update shit, you know, and just go with the flow. Don't try to be the flow, but go with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. Next episode is going to be our final one of this series.
It came so quick.
It really has. Maybe not so much for you guys.
Yeah, true.
But for us, it has.
But we have a rhythm now.
Yeah, we do. It's very exciting. Please leave us a review wherever you're listening. We really appreciate it. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Color Pink Podcast. You could also send us an email at thecolorpinkpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys in our next episode.